Have you ever felt invisible, even when you give your all, every single day? The world outside was still wrapped in darkness, a deep, pre-dawn hush that coated the Los Angeles suburb like a heavy blanket. Streetlights glowed orange on the cracked sidewalk, and the only sounds were the distant hum of a delivery van and the soft chirp of a bird too early for sunrise. On Maplewood Avenue, the Castillo family's modest two-story home stood quietly, its windows dark except for the faintest golden glow bleeding from the kitchen. Inside, Marina Castillo moved through the kitchen with quiet purpose. It was 4:07 a.m. She'd been awake for nearly half an hour, drawn from sleep by the silent urgency of her daily checklist. She wore navy leggings and an oversized gray t-shirt, her dark hair twisted into a loose bun. The linoleum floor was cool beneath her socked feet as she stood at the counter, slicing strawberries for her children's lunches. The refrigerator hummed beside her, a steady companion. A kettle simmered on the stove, steam curling upward. Around her, the kitchen bore the marks of a life in motion, a pile of school permission slips stacked neatly by the fruit bowl, a row of meal prep containers, a handwritten shopping list attached to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a smiling taco. Marina paused, glancing at the clock. 4:10 a.m., time to switch the laundry. She moved down the narrow hallway to the small laundry nook, where she expertly transferred damp clothes from washer to dryer, her hands quick and practiced. The scent of clean fabric mingled with the aroma of brewing coffee. By 4:30, the kitchen was transformed. Pancake batter rested in a bowl, eggs sat in a pan ready to scramble, and 2 lunch boxes, one with a soccer ball sticker, one with a pastel unicorn, waited open for final touches. Marina wiped her hands on a towel and exhaled, looking out the window at the pale blue hint on the horizon. She felt the familiar ache in her shoulders, the kind that came from lifting, bending, always moving. But there was satisfaction too, a sense of control, of having set the day in motion for her family. Upstairs, muffled footsteps signaled the day's next phase. Marina climbed the carpeted steps, pushing open her daughter's door. "Lila, honey, time to get up," she whispered, brushing a stray curl from her daughter's forehead. Lila groaned, rolling over, but Marina smiled, tired, but warm, and tugged gently at the blanket. Across the hall, her son Mateo's room was a different scene. Dinosaur posters, mismatched socks on the floor, the faint glow of a nightlight. "Come on, champ," she said softly, and Mateo blinked up at her, his face still creased with sleep. Back in the kitchen, Eric Castillo emerged in a crisp shirt and slacks, his tie already knotted, hair neatly combed. He moved with the practiced haste of a man with a train to catch, eyes darting to his phone. He smiled when he saw Marina, but his gaze flickered quickly back to the screen. "Morning, Omar," he said, grabbing a mug of coffee from the counter. "You're amazing, you know that?" He kissed her cheek as he scrolled through his email. Marina smiled, but her eyes lingered on the tightness around his mouth, the way his thoughts seemed elsewhere. Mateo and Lila tumbled into the kitchen, bickering about who would get the last blueberry pancake. Marina mediated with a practiced hand, sliding the pancakes onto plates, filling water bottles, checking that homework was packed. "Shoes, please! Mateo, your cleats are by the door. Lila, jacket!" Her voice was gentle but firm. She checked the time, 6:45 a.m., and felt the familiar rush of adrenaline. Lunches zipped, bags slung over shoulders, and Eric disappeared out the door with a hurried wave, already dialing into a conference call. The house emptied, leaving Marina in the quiet aftermath. She rinsed plates, wiped counters, and gathered the grocery list. The hum of the dryer signaled another load ready to fold. She glanced at the wall calendar. Doctor's appointment for Lila at 3, Mateo's soccer at 5, bills due by Friday. Her mind spun with the details, a mental spreadsheet constantly being updated. Outside, the sun finally crested the horizon, spilling gold across the quiet street. Marina slipped her shoes on, grabbed her reusable shopping bags, and stepped out, just as Sandra Patel, her next-door neighbor, bustled down her driveway in a navy suit, keys in hand. "Morning, Marina," Sandra called, pausing by the sidewalk. "Off to the store already?" Marina smiled. "Just a quick run before the day gets away from me." Sandra's lips curled in a half-smile, her voice bright and edged. "Must be nice to have so much free time at home. I'd give anything for a quiet morning." Marina's smile faltered, just for a moment. "There's always something to do," she replied, her tone light, but her chest tightened. She watched Sandra drive away, the neighbor's words echoing in the still morning air. As Marina walked toward her car, she caught sight of Mrs. Gloria Espinoza waving from her porch. The elderly woman, wrapped in a shawl, smiled warmly. "Buenos dias, Marina. Could you pick up some milk and a few apples for me?" Her voice was gentle, tinged with gratitude. Of course, Mrs. Espinosa, Marina replied, jotting the items onto her list. She felt a small surge of pride. At least here, her help was seen. She drove to the supermarket, weaving through the early morning traffic, the city slowly waking up around her. The radio played softly, a backdrop to her thoughts. She mentally rehearsed the day's schedule, ticking off each task: groceries, laundry, bills, Mrs. Espinosa's errands, meal prep, after-school pickups, homework help, dinner, baths, bedtime. Back home, she unpacked groceries, arranged them neatly in the fridge, and set aside Mrs. Espinosa's items to deliver later. She sorted the bills by due date, checked her email for school notices, and scribbled reminders on sticky notes. The hours slipped by in a blur of action, but as the sun climbed higher, the house remained quiet, just the steady rhythm of her work. She moved through the rooms, straightening, wiping, folding, organizing. Her hands were always moving, but her mind kept returning to Sandra's words. Must be nice to have so much free time at home. Marina paused in the hallway, her reflection caught in the mirror. She saw the tired lines around her eyes, the faint smudge of flour on her cheek, the determined set of her jaw. She thought of Eric, so loving but so distracted, and how even he seemed to forget all that she did. She thought of Sandra, who assumed her days were filled with rest and leisure. She thought of how invisible it felt, how the work that kept her family running was the kind that no one seemed to notice, unless it was left undone. Her phone buzzed, breaking her reverie. A reminder. Mateo's field trip form, send today. She grabbed a pen and tackled the next task, unwilling to let anything slip. The day moved forward, relentless. She dropped off groceries for Mrs. Espinosa, who thanked her with a squeeze of the hand. You're an angel, Marina. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Back home, Marina paused by the window, watching as the neighborhood stirred to life. Children rode bikes on the sidewalk. Parents waved goodbye from driveways. The world moved on, unaware of the woman in the window who had been awake since before dawn, orchestrating the invisible symphony that kept her family's life in tune. She wondered, how many others felt this way? How many people gave their all every single day, only to be told their work was nothing? She looked out at the city beyond her quiet street, her heart heavy but resolute. There was so much more to her days than anyone saw. Do you ever feel like your hard work goes unnoticed? By 7:30 a.m., the neighborhood was finally waking up. The sun filtered through the kitchen window, illuminating the aftermath of a whirlwind morning. Cereal bowls stacked in the sink, stray crumbs on the countertop, a to-do list with more things added than crossed off. Marina Castillo stood at the sink, fingers wrinkled from washing dishes since before sunrise. She paused, listening to the echo of her children's laughter as they put on shoes by the door. Come on, Lila, we're going to be late, Marina called, wiping her hands on her apron. Lila, her 12-year-old daughter, bounded down the stairs, backpack half-zipped. Mom, did you sign my field trip form? Marina reached for the paper on the fridge, quickly scribbling her signature. Got it, mija. Your snacks packed too. She handed over a carefully assembled lunchbox, double-checking that Mateo's was ready as well. Mateo, 8, grinned up at her, clutching his soccer ball. Will you watch my game after school? Marina smoothed his hair. Of course, sweetheart. Now shoes on, let's go. The walk to the car was brisk, the California air already warming. From next door, Sandra Patel emerged, impeccably dressed for work, coffee in hand, her own son trailing behind. Morning, Marina, Sandra called, smiling brightly. Off to another tough day of relaxation? Her tone was light, but there was a hint of something else. A teasing, a nudge. Marina forced a laugh, her stomach tightening. Yes, you know me. Just another day at the spa, she replied, masking the sting. As the kids clambered into the back seat, Sandra leaned in, lowering her voice. You're lucky. I'd love a day off to myself. Maybe I could catch up on sleep. She winked, and Marina mustered a polite smile, but her mind was already racing through the endless list awaiting her return. Dropping the kids at school was a cacophony of honking cars, rushing parents, and reminders about permission slips and after-school pickups. At the curb, Marina watched as Lila linked arms with a friend, already absorbed in middle school chatter. Mateo waved from the playground before disappearing into a swirl of children. Back in the car, Marina's phone buzzed. A new text from Mrs. Gloria Espinosa, her elderly neighbor. Marina, dear, could you help me with groceries today? I'm so sorry for the last-minute request. Marina replied instantly. Of course, Mrs. Espinosa. I'll be over after errands. She drove on to the supermarket, ticking off her mental list for the week. Eric's favorite coffee, Lila's cereal, Mateo's allergy-friendly snacks, and extras for Mrs. Espinosa. The aisles were crowded, mothers with toddlers, elderly couples, professionals in suits with baskets of microwave meals. Marina moved quickly, scanning coupons, calculating prices, making decisions that stretched every dollar. At checkout, she realized she'd forgotten the eggs. She jogged back to grab them, nearly colliding with another hurried shopper. By the time she loaded groceries into the trunk, her phone rang again. It was the school secretary. "Mrs. Castillo, Leela forgot her lunchbox. Could you drop it off?" Marina pressed her forehead against the steering wheel for a moment before answering. "Yes, I'll be right there." Back at school, she parked in the visitor's spot, walked through the now quiet halls, and handed over the lunchbox. The secretary gave her a sympathetic smile. "You're always here, Marina. We should give you an office." Marina chuckled, but as she walked back to her car, she caught snatches of conversation near the entrance. Sandra stood with a group of parents, their voices carrying. "I wish I had time for all that volunteering," one mother sighed. Sandra chimed in. "Marina's got it made. She's always around. Must be nice to have so little stress." There was a ripple of laughter. Marina's cheeks burned. Her hands tightened on the car keys. She drove home in silence, the radio off, the city's noise muted by her own thoughts. At home, groceries unloaded, Marina set to work, chopping vegetables for dinner, folding laundry, scrubbing the kitchen floor. Each task bled into the next. Her phone vibrated again. A reminder. "Bake sale tomorrow. Don't forget to bring cookies." She groaned. It had slipped her mind entirely. She checked the clock. Nearly noon. She still had to call the pediatrician about Mateo's checkup, schedule a plumber for the leaky faucet, and draft an email to the PTA about next month's fundraiser. Her phone buzzed once more. Mrs. Espinoza again. "Marina, I'm so sorry, but could you come earlier? I'm not feeling well today." Marina slipped on her shoes, grabbed her purse, and hurried across the street. Mrs. Espinoza answered the door, silver hair pulled back, eyes tired, but warm. "Thank you, dear. I know you're busy," she murmured. "It's no trouble at all," Marina said, guiding her neighbor to the couch. She put away groceries, fetched water, and wrote down notes for Mrs. Espinoza's medications. "Are you sure you're all right, Mrs. Espinoza?" "I think it's just the heat." "You're a blessing, Marina. I don't know what I'd do without you." The words soothed something raw inside her, but as Marina crossed back to her own house, the weight of the day pressed heavier. She made a mental note to check on Mrs. Espinoza again later. The afternoon sun poured in through the kitchen window, catching the dust motes in the air. The once clean counters were now cluttered with flour and mixing bowls as Marina started baking for the school sale. The mixer whirred, drowning out the sound of her phone ringing again. This time, Eric. She wiped her hands and picked up. "Hi, Amer." "Hey." Eric's voice was clipped, distracted. "How's your day?" Marina looked at the stacks of laundry, the unfinished cookies, her scribbled list. "Busy, as always." He sighed. "I wish I could have a break like you do. My boss just dumped another project on me. It never ends." She hesitated. "Yeah, it never ends here either." He didn't seem to hear. "I'll be late again." "Don't wait for me for dinner." Marina wanted to explain, to list everything she'd done since 4 a.m., but instead she just whispered, "Okay, take care." She hung up, the silence in the house suddenly deafening. Her eyes prickled with tears, but she blinked them away. There was no time. Lila would be home soon, and she still needed help with her history project. At 3:30, the front door swung open with a burst of energy. Lila dumped her backpack on the floor. "Mom, I need poster board and markers for my school project. It's due tomorrow." Marina took a deep breath. "All right, let's do it together." She set aside her own fatigue. Her daughter's needs came first. They sat at the kitchen table, colored markers scattered between them. Lila's frustration bubbled over as she struggled to organize her ideas. "Why does history have so many dates? I can't remember all this." Marina gently guided her. "Let's break it down. What's the most important part? We'll build from there." She watched Lila's brow furrow, her fingers tapping anxiously, and felt a surge of empathy. It wasn't so different from her own overwhelm. By the time the poster was finished, the kitchen was a mess, and dinner still needed preparing. Mateo, back from soccer, was hungry and tired. As they all sat down at the small dining table, Marina noticed the tension in Lila's jaw, the way Mateo picked at his food, Eric's empty chair. After dinner, the mountain of dishes loomed. Marina moved on autopilot, mind replaying the day's tiny slights, the comments at school, the phone call with Eric, Sandra's jokes. She wondered if anyone really saw the hours she poured into her family and community. When the children were finally tucked into bed, Marina collapsed onto the couch, scrolling through her phone. Her feed was filled with smiling families, pristine kitchens, parents on vacation, images of perfection. She stared at them, feeling the distance between the glossy surface and her own reality. A notification popped up. Another mom influencer had posted a reel, how to keep your home spotless and stress-free. Marina watched for a moment, her exhaustion deepening. Did anyone believe these lives were real? Did anyone else feel this tired and unseen? She set the phone aside, hands trembling with fatigue. Outside, the city lights flickered, a steady, indifferent glow. Inside, the quiet felt heavier than ever. If you've ever felt misunderstood in your role, if you've ever wondered whether your everyday efforts matter, hit subscribe and share your experience in the comments. You're not alone. Marina's story is just beginning, and together, we can lift each other up. As Marina leaned her head back against the couch, the clock ticked past 10 p.m. In just a few hours, her alarm would ring again. Another day, another chance to be seen. The clock's red digits glared. 5:38 p.m. The kitchen air was thick with the scent of cumin and simmering beans, but also with tension, almost visible, hovering over the countertop. Marina's hands moved with practiced speed. She chopped cilantro, flipped tortillas on the skillet, checked the chicken roasting in the oven. The sounds of Lila and Mateo's bickering echoed from the living room, sharp and persistent, punctuated by the clatter of Lego bricks and the thump of a soccer ball against the wall. She tried to block it out, but the day's accumulation of slights and demands pressed in on her chest. Her phone vibrated. Again. She wiped her hands on a towel, swiped the screen. A text from Eric. Running late, bringing 3 colleagues for dinner. Hope that's okay. Sandra's family too. See you soon. Marina's heart plummeted. She stared at the message as if it were written in a foreign language, hoping there was some mistake. She scrolled up, reread it. 3 colleagues, Sandra's family. Tonight. No warning. She closed her eyes for a moment. The exhaustion she'd been keeping at bay all day surged forward, threatening to drag her under. She glanced at the clock, less than an hour before everyone arrived. The kitchen was a mess, flour-dusted counters, sticky spots from the kids' after-school snacks, an unwashed lunchbox crusted with peanut butter. The living room was worse, toys strewn everywhere, unfolded laundry slouched on the couch, school papers scattered like confetti. A familiar ache, resentment mixed with panic, settled in her chest. She moved quickly, fueled by adrenaline. She called out, voice stretched thin. Lila, Mateo, please help pick up your toys. We're having guests soon. No answer. Lila's voice reached her, muffled and annoyed. I'm in the middle of something. Just 5 minutes, please. Marina's hands shook as she stacked plates, pulled out extra napkins. She checked the pantry. No extra rice, not enough salad greens. Her mind raced. Could she stretch the beans with corn? Would there be enough food for everyone? Why didn't Eric ask her first? Her phone vibrated again. This time, Sandra. Hey, Marina. Can I bring anything? Or, you probably have it all under control. Marina forced her voice to stay light as she typed back. We're good, thanks. See you soon. She set the phone down, hard. The slicing, the dicing, the orchestrating of dinner, the managing of chaos, it all pressed in, threatening to boil over. She heard the front door, Mrs. Espinosa's gentle knock. Marina wiped her hands again and answered, face fixed in a smile. Hola, Marina, Mrs. Espinosa said, hands clasped around a small bowl of limes. I brought these for you. They looked perfect for your dinner. Marina nearly crumpled. Thank you, Mrs. Espinosa. I wish I could visit, but... Mrs. Espinosa smiled, eyes warm and understanding. I know, mija. I just wanted to drop these off. Is everything all right? Marina hesitated. It's just... Eric invited people over. Last minute. I don't know how I'm going to pull this off. Mrs. Espinosa put a gentle hand on her shoulder. You're stronger than you know, and you're not alone. If you need help, just ask. Marina nodded, biting back tears. Thank you. The kitchen filled with the shriek of the smoke alarm, the tortillas. She rushed back, fanned the skillet, coughed. The kids burst in, arguing loudly, Lila waving a broken pencil, Mateo in tears. Mom, Mateo broke my... He started it. Enough! Marina's voice cracked, raw and unsteady. The kids fell silent, surprised by the edge in her voice. She inhaled slowly, rubbing her forehead. Please, just help me tidy the living room. We need to get ready. The doorbell rang. Laughter and voices filtered through the hallway. Sandra's lilting tone, her husband's booming laugh, and Eric's colleagues, strangers, standing in the entryway, briefcases and all. Eric's voice, breezy and oblivious, called out, We're here! Marina pasted on a smile, ushered everyone in. Sandra swept in with a tray of store-bought cookies, her husband following, kids in tow. Eric's colleagues, 3 sharply dressed men, shook Marina's hand, their eyes darting around the crowded, slightly chaotic home. Smells great in here, one of the men said, glancing at the kitchen mess. Wow, Marina, you must have so much free time to cook like this every day, Sandra quipped, laughing as she set down the cookies. Her cheeks burned. She forced a smile. It's always busy around here. They settled into the living room. Marina darted back to the kitchen, heart racing. She finished the salad, reheated the beans, tried to ignore the mess she hadn't had time to hide. She set the table, hands trembling, watching as the guests, her guests apparently, filled the room with easy conversation. Sandra's voice cut through the chatter. Honestly, Marina, I don't know how you do it. If I were home all day, I think I'd just nap and watch TV. The laughter stung. She felt her vision blur. She excused herself quietly, ducking into the kitchen, the hum of voices muffled by the door. She leaned against the counter, breath coming in shallow bursts. The weight of the day, of every day, crashed over her. She pressed her fist to her mouth, fighting the urge to sob. Her reflection in the microwave door looked tired, defeated. A gentle knock. Mrs. Espinosa stepped in, soft as a whisper. I'm sorry, Marina couldn't finish. The tears came, hot and silent. Mrs. Espinosa wrapped her arms around her, gentle but strong. Let it out, Marina. You're not made of stone. Marina shook her head. They think I do nothing. Eric, Sandra, everyone. They laugh. I give everything, and it's never enough. Mrs. Espinosa pulled back, looking her in the eye. Let me tell you something, mija. When I was your age, I stayed home for my children too. People said I was wasting my education, my time. Even my husband didn't see it. But those years were the heart of our family. No one saw the work, but it was everywhere. It's easy to judge what they don't understand. Marina wiped her eyes, voice trembling. But what if it's true? What if I'm just invisible? Mrs. Espinosa shook her head. No, Marina. You are the center. You are what holds this home together. But sometimes you have to remind them. People forget what they don't see. A silence settled between them, heavy but comforting. Marina drew in a shaky breath. I don't know how to say it. You just did, Mrs. Espinosa said. Now go say it to them. Marina hesitated, fear knotting in her stomach. The thought of walking back into that room, of drawing attention to herself, of breaking the illusion of effortless perfection, terrified her. But as she looked at Mrs. Espinosa, at the kindness in her eyes, something inside her shifted. She straightened her shoulders, wiped her face, and squared her jaw. She opened the kitchen door. The guests' laughter was softer now, mingled with the clink of forks and the shuffle of plates. Eric looked up, smiling, as she entered. The kids sat quietly, Sandra and her husband chatting with Eric's colleagues about traffic on the 405. She cleared her throat. The room stilled. I need to say something, Marina started, voice low but steady. All eyes turned to her. Eric's brows knit in concern. Sandra smiled, half curious, half amused. Marina's hands trembled, but she pressed on. I know I make it look easy, but it's not. I wake up at 4 every morning. I cook, clean, plan, drive, help with homework, do the shopping, the bills. I help Mrs. Espinosa. I make sure everyone's where they need to be, with what they need. I don't get breaks. My days don't end when you get home. I do it because I love you, because I love this family. But when you say I do nothing all day, or laugh, or act like my work doesn't count, it hurts. A lot. The silence was deafening. Eric's mouth opened, closed. Sandra's eyes widened, her cheeks coloring. Marina took a shaky breath. I'm not asking for applause, but I am asking for respect, for understanding, because running this home, is work. It matters. A long beat, the air thick with unspoken things. Sandra broke the silence, voice softer. I'm sorry, Marina. I guess I just never thought about it like that. Eric stood, crossed to her, his face stricken. Marina, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I should have. You do so much for all of us. I haven't been fair. Marina's eyes filled again, but this time with relief. For the first time in years, she felt seen. Mrs. Espinosa, standing quietly by the door, smiled. The evening shifted. Conversation resumed, but softer, more thoughtful. Eric helped serve dessert. Sandra cleared plates. The kids hugged Marina, unprompted. As the night drew to a close, Marina stood at the sink, tired but lighter. Eric came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. Thank you, Marina, he whispered. For everything. I mean it. She leaned into him, eyes closing, the ache in her chest finally easing. For the first time, she believed it might actually get better. There was a charged silence after Marina's words echoed through the dining room. Forks paused mid-air. The laughter that had just filled the space evaporated. Eric glanced at her, surprise flickering in his eyes, and Sandra looked momentarily chastened, her smile faltering as she realized the weight of Marina's calm but honest confession. For the first time that evening, everyone truly saw Marina, not as a backdrop to their lives, but as a woman standing in her own truth. Eric cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably in his chair. Marina, I didn't realize you felt that way, he said, his voice softer than usual. I just thought you made it all look so easy. There was a genuine apology in his tone, one that Marina had longed for but never asked to hear. Sandra reached for her water, eyes downcast. I'm sorry, Marina. I shouldn't have joked about your day. I know it's not easy. I can barely keep up with my own house and work. Marina let out a shaky breath, the tension in her shoulders loosening just a bit. She felt the burn of vulnerability, but also the relief that comes with finally being understood. Thank you. I know people don't always mean harm, but it hurts when all the invisible things I do are dismissed. I wake up before dawn because I want my family to have what they need, but sometimes I wish someone would just see it. A gentle voice chimed in from the end of the table. Mrs. Espinoza, her wise eyes shimmering with empathy. When I was raising my own children, people said the same things to me. But the truth is, the world runs on the work nobody sees. It's quiet work, but it's the foundation for everything else. The table was quiet, each person lost in their own thoughts. Then, Lila spoke up, her voice tiny but clear. Mom, I see you. Every morning I wake up and my breakfast is already there. My clothes are clean. You help me with my homework, even when you're tired. Mateo nodded, his lips pressed together in concentration as if deciding what to say. You help Mrs. Espinoza, too. And the bake sales. You do a lot, Mom. A warmth spread through Marina's chest, the kind that comes from being truly seen. For years, she'd measured her worth by the visible, tangible things she could show for her labor. But now, hearing her daughter's words, she realized that love, and the everyday acts of care, were their own quiet legacy. Eric reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I'm sorry I haven't shown how much I appreciate you. I get so caught up with work, I forget how much you're carrying. We all do. I want to do better. Sandra nodded, glancing up with a hesitant smile. Maybe next time I can help with the bake sale or carpool the kids. We're all just trying our best, right? There was a gentle laughter, this time lighter and more genuine. Marina smiled, a real one that reached her eyes, and the atmosphere in the room changed. It wasn't about perfection or about keeping score. It was about understanding and respect. After dinner, as the guests trickled out and the children helped clear the table, Marina found herself alone on the back porch, the cool air brushing her skin. Mrs. Espinoza joined her, settling onto the old wooden bench beside her. The city was alive with distant traffic and the occasional bark of a neighbor's dog, but here, under the soft glow of the porch light, it was peaceful. You did the right thing, Marina, Mrs. Espinoza said gently. Sometimes, people need to hear what's real, even if it's uncomfortable. Marina nodded, her eyes reflecting the porch light like small moons. I was scared. I didn't want to make a scene or seem ungrateful. Speaking your truth isn't ungrateful, Mrs. Espinoza replied. It's brave. You showed your family who you are, and you reminded them of what really matters. For a long moment, Marina simply breathed in the night air. She realized that the weight she'd carried wasn't just about chores or errands. It was about feeling unseen, undervalued. But now a shift had happened, not just in her family, but inside herself. The next morning, the sky was just turning pink as Marina tiptoed downstairs. She made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, letting the quiet wash over her. One by one, the family joined her. Eric made pancakes, laughing as he burned the first batch. Lila set the table, humming to herself. Mateo fed scraps to their dog, giggling as the puppy licked his fingers. There was no grand gesture, no overnight transformation, but there were small, meaningful changes. Eric started asking how he could help before leaving for work. The kids took more responsibility for their own chores. Sandra texted, inviting Marina to join a group of parents volunteering at the school, and followed up with, let's share the load. Marina also made time for herself, reading in the afternoons, going for walks, sitting with Mrs. Espinoza and listening to her stories. She realized that taking care of herself wasn't selfish. It was essential. She started to see her own worth, not just in what she did, but in who she was. Months passed, and the rhythms of the Castillo home shifted. Marina's days were still full, but she no longer felt invisible. She discovered a quiet confidence in her voice, a sense of pride in her work, and a deeper connection to her family. One evening, as she tucked Lila and Mateo into bed, Lila asked, Mom, are you happy? Marina smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's forehead. Yes, mi amor, I am. Because I know I matter. And so do you. The next day, Marina posted a photo of her breakfast table on social media. Not perfectly staged, but real, with crumbs and coffee stains and a family laughing in the background. She captioned it, "The work you don't see is the work that keeps us together." And that's enough. The comments poured in, friends, other parents, even Sandra, sharing their own stories of feeling unseen, of finding pride in the invisible. Marina replied to each one, grateful for the community that had always been there, waiting to be found. If you've ever felt overlooked, if your efforts have gone unrecognized, I want you to know, you matter. The little things you do, the early mornings, the late nights, the quiet acts of love, shape your world in ways you can't always see. You are not invisible. And now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment where you finally felt seen? Or maybe you're still waiting for that recognition. Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one. And if Marina's journey resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe for more real-life stories, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Because together, we can remind the world that the unseen work is often the most important of all. Thank you for being here, and for all that you do, seen and unseen.